Martha never meant to join Seattle's ragtag birdwatching brigade. She just wanted Kale Ballard Farmers Market. But there stood a neon-vested retiree shoving binoculars into her hands, crowing about rogue ospreys nesting atop a skyscraper. 58. Martha figured eco-grief had hollowed her out for good. Yet scribbling sightings in her field notebook, starlings mobbing a falcon, a heron stalking parking lot puddles, lit a stubborn spark. These urban birds wherein Martha never meant to join Seattle's ragtag birdwatching collective. But retirement left her hands restless, and grief over melting glaciers had started nesting in her chest like a stubborn crow. That tattered field notebook, left over from her teaching days, edges softened by decades of chalk dust and grocery lists, became her anchor. She filled pages with sparrow sightings near Pike Place, her handwriting wobbling as she balanced binoculars and a half-eaten farmer's market peach. Urban birding, it turned out, was less about elegance and more about showing up. Martha's knees protested park benches, but she learned to spot a Buick's wren by its cocky little tail flick. Her group, a mix of millennials in Patagonia vests and grandmas with opera glasses, traded tips over drip coffee. They called themselves binoculords, a name so dorky it lit her up inside. Fear still crept in sometimes, not of mortality, but of being a bystander in a world unraveling. It felt like watching a storm swell over Puget Sound while clutching an umbrella made of tissue paper. But scribbling down each junco and towhee made chaos feel charitable. One Tuesday, she spotted a violet-green swallow diving past a condo complex, its iridescence defiant against gray concrete. That notebook entry ended with a smudged underline. Still here. So am I. By spring, Martha's walks grew longer. She taught a 9-year-old neighbor how to distinguish robin's songs from thrushes. Kid called her Captain Birdie Pants, which, 58, was finest title she'd ever earned. Martha never meant to join Seattle's ragtag birdwatching collective, but retirement left her restless, and eco-grief had settled into her bones like November drizzle. One morning, flipping through a farmer's market newsletter, she spotted a blurb about urban bird counts, helped track shifting migration patterns, and something lit up behind her ribs. Her hands, used to kneading dough or flipping patient charts, craved purpose. She showed up underdressed, binoculars dangling like costume jewelry, but no one batted an eye. Crew was a mosaic of ages and backgrounds. A barista with sleeve tattoos logging crows, a grandmotherly type who could ID warblers by ear, and a lanky teen who called her ma'am without irony. Their leader, a retired biology teacher named Javier, handed her a field notebook. Write everything. Even what you think doesn't matter. Its pages smelled faintly of cedar, and that first blank sheet felt like a dare. Martha's early attempts were comedic. She mistook a robin's rustling for a rare thrush, nearly face-planted chasing a flicker's shadow, and once spent 20 minutes stalking what turned out to be a wind-tossed grocery bag. But Javier just chuckled. Welcome to club. My first eagle was a trash hawk. Slowly, her eyes adjusted. She learned to spot subtle shifts, how sparrows avoided certain alleys after construction, how juncos lingered longer in warming winters. Her notebook filled with messy sketches and caffeine-stained observations, each entry a tiny rebellion against despair. One drizzly Thursday, she noticed something odd. A lone osprey circling a downtown high-rise, far from its usual river haunt. Group buzzed. Could it be nesting? Martha's hands shook as she recorded details, her scribbles suddenly vital. That night, she pored over maps, cross-referencing old nests with new heat islands. It wasn't just data. It was a thread pulling her back into world. By spring, she was leading neighborhood walks, pointing out nests to wide-eyed kids. Her notebook, now dog-eared and smudged with berry stains, became a testament to small, stubborn hope. Climate grief hadn't vanished, but it had company. A flock of moments where paying attention felt like enough. And when Osprey returned, this time with a mate, Martha grinned so hard her cheeks ached. 58 and just getting started. Creator never meant to join Seattle's ragtag birdwatching collective, but retirement left her restless, and eco-grief gnawed like a persistent crow on trash day. 58. She'd seen enough headlines to make anyone want to bury their head under a stack of old birding magazines. Yet here she was, squinting through binoculars, a flicker hammering a stop sign, its red crest lit by weak January sun. Her first field notebook entries were embarrassingly sparse, pigeon, gray, boring. But women in her collective, a mix of tech burnouts and grandmothers with hawk-eyed precision, never mocked her. They just slid extra pencils across folding tables, farmers' market meetups, their own notebooks bursting with migration patterns and nesting quirks. Martha's stubborn streak kicked in. If they could track a Cooper's hawk through a skyscraper canyon, she could damn well learn to distinguish a junco from a sparrow. Mistakes piled up. She logged a plastic bag as a swan, mistook a squirrel's rustling for a warbler's song. But each misstep carved space for curiosity. Slowly, her notes deepened. Anna's hummingbird, male, defending feeder like a tiny CEO. She began noticing how city birds adapted, how crows dropped walnuts under tires to crack them open. Life persisted, clever and unflinching. One drizzly dawn, clutching her notebook like a shield against despair, creator spotted a barred owl tucked into an alley maple. The stillness felt like a challenge. She didn't flinch when her knees protested crouching. She sketched owl stripes until her fingers cramped. That page became her anchor. Whenever doom-scrolling threatened to pull her under, she flipped back to it, proof that paying attention was its own kind of fight. By spring, her entries had rhythms even collectives veterans admired. Cedar waxwings drunk on fermented berries, wobbling like weekend tourists. Laughter returned, dry as a August sidewalk. Birds hadn't saved world, but they'd handed Martha a map to her own resilience, one scribbled observation at a time. She never meant to join Seattle's ragtag birdwatching collective, but grief had a way of nudging her toward strange perches. After months of doom-scrolling through climate headlines, her hands itched to do something, anything, besides wringing themselves raw. So she'd bought a field notebook with a cardinal on cover, kind her granddaughter called old school lit, and showed up to Green Lake Park dawn, binoculars dangling like a tourist's badge. First time out, she mistook a crow for a raven, rookie move, but group just chuckled, scribbled it in their logs and kept scanning treeline. No judgment, just data. That notebook became her anchor. Each scribble, a heron's lazy glide, a hummingbird's frantic hover, felt like stitching a tiny patch onto planet's fraying quilt. Then came morning. She spotted barred owl, perched on a power line near Ballard Farmers Market. Its streaked chest puffed like a feathered banker. It shouldn't have been there. Urban owls were rare, and this one stared right her, unblinking, as if issuing a challenge. Hands trembling. Since when did 58 feel so jittery? She fumbled for her phone, zoomed in, and snapped a shot. Blurry image went straight into Collective's online tracker with a note. Possible territory shift due to habitat loss? Next day, her inbox blew up. A local biologist reposted it with a screaming headline. Amateur sighting could rewrite city wildlife maps. Suddenly, Martha's scribbles weren't just catharsis, they were science. Next meetup, a skeptical birder who'd once sighed eyed her misidentified crows elbowed through crowd, waving a printed map. You saw this? He demanded, voice cracking. When she nodded, he actually hooped. Group erupted. Someone thrust a thermos of spiced cider into her hands like a trophy. Later, flipping through her notebook's dog-eared pages, Martha traced Owl's entry with a grin. Who knew stubbornness and a $99 notebook could turn eco-grief into something that mattered? Around her, Collective buzzed with plans to expand their tracking zones. She took a sip of cider, warmth spreading through her chest. No more helpless dread, just feathers, facts, and sly satisfaction of proving you're never too old to stumble into greatness. I finally belong here, she thought, and for first time in years, future didn't feel like a storm. Felt like wings. Woman never meant to join Seattle's ragtag birdwatching crew, but grief over melting glaciers had left her restless. 58. She'd buried herself in doom-scrolling until a rogue crow stole her farmer's market muffin, an avian mugging that felt oddly personal. She dug out an old field notebook, its leather cracked like drought-parched earth, and followed thief. Turns out, urban birds were lit drama queens. Martha's notebook filled with their sagas. Juncos bickering over hedges, bald eagles flexing like suburban dads. She started scribbling near community gardens, where other women, some older, some just as lost, paused to peek over her shoulder. Soon they were a flock, swapping binoculars and bad puns. Bird watching? More like nerd watching. One Tuesday, creator guided a new bee to spot a barred owl camouflaged in a maple. Woman gasped, eyes wet, not from pollen. That's when Martha knew. This wasn't just tallying feathers. It was stitching a safety net from shared wonder. Her notebook, once a solitary record, became a manifesto of small, stubborn joys. Now they're collective tracks more than birds. They log blooming cherry trees, rescue stranded salamanders, heckle city planners for greener parks. Martha's knees creak, but her spirit's lighter than her grandkid's backpack. Climate grief hasn't vanished, but it's got competition. Thrill of a pileated woodpecker's punk rock mohawk. Solidarity of women who've stopped waiting for permission to care. Seattle's birds don't need saving. Neither does Martha. But together, they're rewriting story. Grab your notebook, Wild is waiting.